Alrighty, welcome in. Jacked Up, October 22nd, 2024. Back after a week hiatus. I was in Las Vegas enjoying myself for the Steeler game and enjoying a Steelers win then and a Steelers win on Sunday Night Football, most recently against the New York Jets. 37-15, the final score. The first time in a couple of seasons the Steelers have been able to score 30 points in back-to-back weeks. A lot of that had to do with the change at quarterback. Out goes Justin Fields. In comes Russell Wilson, and he does pretty darn well. We're going to talk about all of that and more with Post-Gazette Steelers beat writer Brian Batko, who joins the fold. Brian, first of all, thanks for taking some time out of your evening to chat with us. The Steelers offense starting to look pretty darn good under Arthur Smith and now Russell Wilson.
Yeah, absolutely, Jack. Thanks for having me on. I'll be honest with you. I wasn't expecting that outburst on Sunday night at Acrisure Stadium. I was in the camp of people surprised that Mike Tomlin was going away from Justin Fields at 4-2. Obviously, as Tomlin said himself a week ago, it was good. It wasn't perfect, probably wasn't even great, but I thought he was doing enough, and I thought there was enough upside to sort of continuing to have something to work with there at quarterback. But hey, Tomlin must have had a different feeling and a different sense of things than I did, and tough to fault him after 1 week for turning to the more experienced quarterback, probably the better pure passer even at this stage of his career. And yeah, I mean, Russell Wilson shook off that rust early, and after that, he was in total command, total control. It was pretty impressive to watch.
Yeah, and I was with you. I was totally in the camp that Justin Fields should continue to keep going until the wheels fell off the Justin Fields wagon. I don't think they had yet. They make the switch, and obviously it bodes well for them. And there's a lot last night when it comes to the passing game, Brian, that I wanted to get your take on. First of all, George Pickens goes over 100 yards, looked incredibly dominant in the win. Van Jefferson catches a touchdown after being pretty much irrelevant in the passing game to start the season. It seems like Russell Wilson is lifting up guys and has the ability to make those around him in the passing game a little bit better. I wanted your take on that as far as what you saw last night, and if you think that he's got that capability of, being a type of quarterback that can make those guys around him better, maybe more so than Justin Fields can.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Jack, he's able to distribute. He's kind of playing a point guard role a little bit out there for the Steelers. Justin Fields, he was kind of their best offensive playmaker at times using his legs, and he had the ability to throw some lasers at times. It's in there somewhere. That's why I still feel like there's a ceiling with him to some extent. But yeah, Russell Wilson's just been there, done that. He's seen so many coverages over his time in the NFL. He's seen a lot in this league. He's seen a lot of different defensive coordinators, and he does seem to have a feel for, hey, let's put it up there for George Pickens. Let's put it, like Pat Freiermuth had a great description after the game of Russell Wilson could kind of see what was going on, the way the guy was defending him on that one, and he put a little bit extra under it, and that was probably the catch of the season so far for Freiermuth. So yeah, I mean, he's getting it done at a professional level. It's easy to remember that even though Justin Fields is 4 years into the league, he's only 25. So, I mean, he's not quite as seasoned, not quite as savvy as Russell Wilson. And even as some of the mobility might be leaving him at this point, he's still got it above the neck, and he's still got that kind of, just innate instinct that you can't teach about playing the position.
Yeah, what did you make of the first portion of the first half? He was like 2 for 9 or something like that. You think that was just a matter of
he was stumbling around like an old man out there for a minute, Jack?
Yeah.
I was pretty worried I was worried that he was going to get lit up, and I was pretty pessimistic about what we were going to see from the Steelers offense. I mean, I do think it was just getting back into the flow of things, getting back to that feel, because yeah, I mean, he played in the preseason, but barely. I mean, he was getting teed off on by the Bills early in that game, and then, very small sample size in the third preseason game against the Lions. Really one throw that he stepped up and hit George Pickens. So I think he was trying to get comfortable again, and he was doing it midstream because the practice time has only been there the last 2 or 3 weeks. And that's so much different than being out there between the lines under the lights when the real bullets are flying.
And this is Russell Wilson's team at this point. I think that you could even make a case that it was Russell Wilson's team, even though Justin Fields started the first 6 games. We're not going back. I mean, unless barring injury or Russ falls off of the wagon hard, it's hard to imagine that you go back to Fields at any point unless you have to.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I think as Russ put it after the game, he's looking at this as a great situation for the Steelers and not one where controversy needs to rule the day and people need to worry about drama or distractions. I mean, he's a pro when it comes to saying the right things. So, I mean, I guess you could take it with a grain of salt, but he makes a good point that, if something does happen, you've got another capable starter who's done it in this league and got you off to a 4-2 start. Right now, though, Russ is 1-0. And like you said, Jack, kind of leaving no doubt here after his debut that this is his show. So, Mike Tomlin, I guess, sort of spilled some tea in the pre-production meeting with NBC. You heard Chris Collinsworth and Mike Tirico talking about it during the broadcast. If you weren't at the stadium and you were just watching from home, I was in the press box trying to do both. And I did catch some of that intel coming from Tomlin that basically he wants to see what Russ can do. And if he goes back to Fields, then that's kind of it. I guess it's sort of the unspoken, the quiet part that they said out loud there is when you go back to the younger guy from the older guy, now you're thinking long-term vision and you're thinking about 2025 in the future and down the road. So, yeah, I mean, it was sort of a thorny situation to deal with at times, once both of these guys were acquired and certainly once the calf injury popped up for Russ and Justin Fields did some good things. But now it seems like it's more of a win-win for both sides here, that they're both getting an opportunity to do this.
And I know you asked Mike Tomlin about it post-game after the game against the Jets, 37-15, the W, about the idea of Justin Fields coming in red zone situations, goal line situations. We think those packages are there. I know Mike Tomlin said that he really didn't consider it at any point, but we should see that at some point during the regular season, right? Maybe not so much immediately into the Russell Wilson era, but you'd have to think that Justin Fields and his athleticism are too darn valuable to just, be holding a clipboard and be waiting for, a moment on the sidelines.
Yeah, and I think, too, I'm going to go ahead and close my office door while I talk to you about this topic, Jack. But, yeah, I mean, I think that's something that Mike Tomlin's going to value, and he's going to enjoy having that wrinkle at his disposal throughout the rest of this season or however long it takes to start, working on some of those offensive packages for Fields and putting those on film, giving opposing defenses something to think about. You go back to the spring, I think around OTA's time, it sort of leaked out there. I think somebody was reporting it nationally that, yeah, even if Russell Wilson wins this job outright and he's QB1, there's going to be times you see Justin Fields, out there under center. So I think that's something that is going to kind of help the offense progress throughout the season. And it's going to be a club that you have in your bag. And it's something that you can go to in those short yardage or red zone opportunities where the field shrinks and Fields' legs are such a weapon, such a just cheat code when he gets in there. So, I mean, I think that's something that it's a long season. And it would not surprise me at all if Mike Tomlin sort of breaks from tradition of what he's done throughout his career and, looks into utilizing his number 2 quarterback, because I think we have seen it. And, he's a guy that Fields, I mean, he'd have to show that, yeah, you can come in cold and you still have to respect the passing ability too. But that'll be something mighty interesting to watch throughout the rest of this year.
Indeed. Sticking with the offense, and there was a lot to talk about on the defensive side of the ball in the win over the Jets too, but offensively,
and special teams, really all three phases, balling out.
Yeah. Real quick thoughts on the love and the FaceTime Danny Smith gets on the broadcast after the blocked field goal. I tweeted that even if you're having the worst of days, seeing Danny Smith getting fired up on the sidelines can brighten you up. I don't know what you made of that situation, but they've been phenomenal and really have been in recent years under Danny Smith.
A lot of special teams coaches are some of the quirkier, crazier guys on football staffs in my time, but Danny Smith is truly one of one, and you can you just be around him for any practice or certainly when he gets these moments in games, and you can see why he is still doing it at this level at age 70 when, and like I've been saying this since the offseason too, of all years that a long in the tooth special teams coordinator would just say, all right, I've had enough. I'm going to go enjoy retirement. It would be now when they've got this new kickoff rule, the dynamic kick, everything's changing for him in his unit. But no, he seems to have even more zest for it than ever. So it's been a funny news cycle for Danny Smith, and thank goodness for him that this time he's getting some love, not because he got wrecked on the sideline and is going to need shoulder surgery. It's just because his unit is playing really well.
Yeah, he was in the middle of rehab. And when my grandfather retired as the play-by-play voice, when we were in the team facility filming that interview that the Steelers posted, he was in the weight room, which is pretty much adjacent to where they, tape all their interviews in their studio and stuff at team headquarters. And he was getting after it in the weight room, vigorously rehabbing that shoulder. So you got to love Danny Smith. Got to love what they're doing on special teams. All right, Najee Harris. Back-to-back 100-yard games. It kind of seems like he is now starting to look like a guy maybe worthy of being drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. He's been up, he's been down, pretty darn good the last couple of weeks. What have you made of his performance?
This is kind of what I expected out of him this year. Ever since I saw, photos of him on social media this offseason, it just looked like he was in the best shape of his life. That's become a cliche when you cover sports, but it seems like he's just motivated maybe by not getting the 5th-year option picked up. He would never say that or admit that, and I'm certainly not saying he wasn't motivated before. Anybody who's watched him knows that from day one, snap one, carry one as a rookie, the guy runs extremely hard, but it just seems like he's kind of coming with a different mindset. Even hungrier, even more driven this season, and it looks like he's got a little bit more burst to him than he's had in the past as well, a little quicker with the first step if he has indeed slimmed down considerably. So yeah, I still don't know that I would want to come back to the negotiating table and do something with him long term, because I think you already kind of squandered your opportunity there to get an additional season if you're the Steelers. But at least for right now, hey, you might as well ride the wheels off of him until he's no longer under contract. Give him a chance to test his worth in free agency, and you never know. He could come back thinking he's a good fit here, and maybe something would work out longer term.
How would you maybe assess that this is trending? Should the good play from him continue in the direction of he's proving himself to other teams, and maybe kind of out kicking the wealth or the coverage, so to speak, that the Steelers are willing to pay him in the offseason should they do business? Or is it trending in the opposite direction where he's proving to the Steelers that he can do this long term, and that the Steelers are now thinking about signing him to a long-term extension in the offseason?
I think the Steelers pretty much already knew what he could do on this front. So I think he's showing it more to other teams and showing that he's still really durable, still capable of ascending at this point in his career. And clearly by declining that 5th-year option, the Steelers were choosing the road of, okay, we have a cheaper, efficient backup in Jaylen Warren. And then, we'll go to the draft. We won't use a first rounder this time, but we can still get another big body back. It looks like the 2025 running back class is going to be pretty strong, beyond just the Boise State guy, Ashton Genty, the Heisman, front runner right now. Probably looks like there's a lot of other good players in that group. So they can be a little bit more conservative with rebuilding the backfield for life after Najee. But I think for him, this is going great, because going to have an opportunity to kind of pick his landing spot, weigh the pros and cons of salary versus lifestyle, offensive fit. And I think there's a lot of other teams out there who, they wouldn't want to use a first-round pick on a running back, but they might be willing to spend a little bit of money on a player who's a first-round talent at that position.
It's Jacked Up with Brian Batko, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. He covers the Steelers. Steelers back-to-back 30-point performances. Defense making an impact in this one as well. We'll talk about it in 15 seconds after this Trinity timeout.
The future looks good. The future looks good to me. The future looks good.
Trinity Timeout, presented by Trinity Health System. Borders and Borders Friday Night Rivals. Week 10 in Ohio, Week 9 in West Virginia. Wheeling Central travels to Toronto, 7 o'clock this Friday on Comet. Beanie Bishop, Brian Batko. What a game for the undrafted rookie out of West Virginia. 2 interceptions off of a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer in Aaron Rodgers. And, there were a lot of questions about the slot corner position coming into the season with the undrafted rookie and Bishop kind of filling in that role, having a tough go at it the last time they were on Sunday Night Football. And he really just flipped the script against the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, this time 2 weeks ago, I would have been sitting here telling you, man, maybe it's time to even look at Thomas Graham on the practice squad, or maybe shake the tree for a waiver wire claim, or just get somebody else in here, because it looked like he was a little overwhelmed. Game was moving pretty fast for him. Cowboys were picking on him, but give him credit for keeping his confidence, not losing sight of that. And I've been saying that about him since he did go undrafted and sign with the Steelers. Being a sixth-year senior and I think 24 coming into the league, I mean, that hurts you as a prospect, but that helps you when you're trying to make a team, and let alone trying to be a starter in your rookie year. So, I mean, if you're going to be the Steelers and lean on any young, unproven, inexperienced slot corner, I mean, you might as well do it with a guy who's seen a lot, played a lot of college ball, and been really productive in those opportunities, even though it was mostly as an outside guy at West Virginia and prior to that. So I think he's now, I mean, hey, it's a week-to-week league. He could go out there and probably won't get torched by Daniel Jones and the Giants or whoever is starting for them. But, hey, he could have some rough moments on Monday Night Football in another primetime opportunity. But I think as long as he – and I'm not predicting another 2-interception game, but as long as he keeps his head above water and, is consistent again next week, I see no reason to rush him to the bench and insert Cam Sutton. I think he'll continue to have a role. And I think a performance like that is, even better for a guy in his sort of mental state, his confidence, and just his teammates' trust on defense too, rising in him. Because when you're with the big dogs like Cam Hayward and TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, it's one thing for them to talk to you and believe in you, but when they actually see you going out there and making those big time plays, I mean, that's got to instill even more faith in you.
How about elsewhere in the secondary? How good has Deshaun Elliott been for the Steelers opposite of Minkah Fitzpatrick? It seems like anytime the football's thrown over the middle, or sometimes even out towards the outside, he's all over the football almost instantaneously. He's been, at least since I can remember, one of the best free agent acquisitions so far that the Steelers have made.
Or even anytime he needs to come up and play the run, I mean, and shoots a gap and drops a guy in the backfield. Yeah, I mean, he is not a name that would have been on my radar, last February, March. If you're telling me to scour the potential free agent safeties, I probably would have said he's just a guy, not much of an upgrade from what the Steelers have had the last couple of years. Keanu Neal, Terrell Edmonds, but at least for right now, I mean, he's playing a lot better than the running mate that they've had with Minkah Fitzpatrick the last few seasons, and probably Minkah's best, pairing so far that since he's been in Pittsburgh. I mean, they complement each other really well. Elliott's another guy who's absolutely playing with confidence. After they did sign him, I kind of went back and looked at, at some of his play, and pretty good at sticking with, running with, plastering tight ends in coverage. But yeah, I mean, the way that he's been continuing to prove himself as a guy who plays with no fear, comes up and run support, smacks people, hard hitter. I mean, he's probably one of the hardest hitting safeties the Steelers have had at that spot since, I don't know, the Ryan Clark day, or maybe Mike Mitchell days. I mean, he could knock some people's blocks off as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I also wanted to ask you too, and a lot of good last night, obviously, but it seemed like early on that especially the inside backers were missing a lot of tackles early in the game. Is that something that you think was kind of fixed as the game went on, or is it kind of a concern, maybe that fans should be worried about just the lack of, and maybe a lot of over pursuing, it seems like, early on in this one?
Yeah, they were taking some bad angles for sure. Patrick Queen a little bit out of position on some of those, and didn't really have the wasn't able to recover and get Breece Hall down. Peyton Wilson looked like a rookie at times early in that one, and you kind of expect that it's not always going to be a linear trajectory for those kind of guys. There's going to be some good, there's going to be some bad. He's always playing fast, though. If he's making mistakes, it's not because he's fearing contact or anything like that. He's going in there with reckless abandon. It's just that a Pro Bowl type running back in Breece Hall made him look silly a couple times. So I think they'll mostly get that straightened out. Elandon Roberts is still solid, steady, dependable in that group. Cole Holcomb continues to try to work his way back. I mean, I wouldn't bank on him providing anything this year, but you never know. I mean, we saw how many bodies they cycled through last season, so it doesn't hurt to have him healthy, nearing 100%, ready to go. I don't think Patrick Queen's been perfect thus far, but I still think he was a good acquisition in free agency, and I still think that group is upgraded from where it was a year ago, obviously in no small part due to injuries. They had to remake that linebacking core yet again.
All right, Brian, before we let you go, this group's 5-2 now. They go Monday night at home against the New York Giants. Bye week, Commanders, the divisional, and really gauntlet for the remainder of the season. What else are you looking for, despite or rather than Russell Wilson just kind of seeing if he can continue this after one game? What else are you kind of looking for out of this team before they really hit the divisional part of the schedule and a back half that includes Kansas City?
Yeah, I mean, I think if this team can get off to some faster starts than we've seen, because once again, they played a pretty complete football game Sunday night, but they do still continue to get bogged down a little bit early in games, both sides of the ball, for whatever reason. And now 2 weeks in a row, they have recovered from it. Even against the Cowboys and Colts, they sort of recovered, but they just couldn't climb all the way back from those holes. So I think this team's formula is still so much better if you can get up on a team early. If you don't falter on that first defensive possession, if you don't go 3 and out on 3 of your first 4 drives, that is something that I think could spark this team to a good finish down the stretch. If they can just consistently play, the way that we see from them in second halves in the first half. I know there's always kind of a feeling out process. Mike Tomlin talks about that seemingly once or twice every year. And in this situation now with Russ coming back, he might still, be moving in fits and starts at times. But yeah, I mean, you do certainly want to see the results. That's first and foremost. Beat a bad Giants team to go into the off week at 6-2. The Commanders are friskier than we anticipated, but you might be playing a banged up rookie and not just a rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels. The Steelers have often had success against those young guys. So yeah, I mean, it's still not going to be easy second half of the season, but man, the Browns don't look as daunting as they did at one time. The Bengals don't look as daunting as they did going into the season. I think there's a lot of reason for fans to feel optimistic about this Steelers team and where they are right now.
Brian Batko of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Check him out in the PG and at thepostgazette.com. My friend, thanks for taking some time to talk about the Steelers. Big one for our Pitt Panthers. You went there. I mean, I didn't, and I'm just a diehard fan, but a big one on Thursday night, trying to stay undefeated against the Orange.
Yeah, I might have to make my way down to Acrisure Stadium. We'll see how this week of work goes for me on the Steelers beat. But yeah, pretty pumped. Really exciting times for the city right now in football on all fronts. Steelers, Pitt, even obviously the Penn State fans here in Western PA too have a lot to be excited about.
Absolutely. I am typically off on Thursdays, so I'm planning on heading down myself. Regardless, man,
let's go.
Appreciate you taking some time, and we'll do it again soon. Thanks, Brian.
No problem, Jack. See you, man.